Welcome to Mid Morning on WCBI. Donald Trump is our 47th president. He has 4 years to guide policy and sign executive orders. Recently, I sat down with Dr. Brian Shoop, a political science professor at Mississippi State, to learn more about what we might expect during Trump's second time in the White House. Today is Inauguration Day. It is a big day in American politics and one that many people will be following closely. Joining me now is Dr. Brian Shoop from Mississippi State University. I'm not going to get your title wrong, so I'm going to let you say it.
Sure. I'm the department head of political science and public administration at Mississippi State University.
All right. And when we look ahead to the next 4 years, a lot of people on Inauguration Day, that's kind of what they're thinking about is policy, politics, legislation that could come in the next 4 years. What do you kind of foresee happening?
Well, I'm going to give the hard-hitting answer that you would hope to expect. I don't know, right? There's certain sorts of things that I think President Trump is going to face in terms of very slim House majority, for example, that's going to make it very difficult to pass a lot of pieces of legislation. But at the end of the day, there's also a lot of structural changes and legal changes that have happened since his last term in terms of immunity of the president and perceptions about the authority of the executive branch that can change or augment maybe how his next term is going to go. My own personal belief is that presidents for the past 3 or 4 terms have grossly misread their victories. Just like President Biden interpreted his victory in 2020 as a mandate to enact a large number of progressive policies that maybe people didn't necessarily want, there's that risk, again, that President Trump may do that this time. And I think part of the reason for that is that there's a phenomenon in political science we call negative partisanship, which is that a lot of voters don't necessarily vote for Vice President Harris or former President Trump or President Biden. Rather, a lot of voters vote against President Biden or former President Trump or Vice President Harris. And sometimes I think that that can manifest itself in, maybe kind of overreading the room.
And when we think about, we talk about the Republicans having a majority, a slim majority in the House, majority in the Senate. Do you foresee something that could happen where Republicans have a little infighting? We've already seen a few disagreements as appointment hearings have started, but they've all kind of come around eventually. Do you I know that's always a concern.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see maybe an opposite problem in the House and in the Senate with the Republicans. Now, to be clear, we've had pretty slim majorities for the past couple of Congresses, and Speaker Johnson's actually proven to be very capable. And so, if we're hoping for policies to be enacted without a lot of trouble, it may well be the case that Speaker Johnson is up to the task of managing that majority. But, in the House of Representatives, you've already seen some fighting where elements, maybe more of the Freedom Caucus wing, have caused him some troubles. I think he's going to have the opposite problem with the Senate, where I think that the senators on the GOP side who might give the agenda the most amount of trouble are more moderate people like Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, or people like Senator Collins from the state of Maine.
And we also shared this piece of history this morning. Grover Cleveland, the only other president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms.
Yeah, that's right, in the late 1800s. It's interesting because Grover Cleveland was a Democrat who won political office at a time right after the Civil War where the Republican Party was really dominant. Starting with Abraham Lincoln and going perhaps all the way through, I think maybe up until Woodrow Wilson took office, it was really clear that the Republican Party was highly dominant. And Grover Cleveland, obviously, is the only other president other than President Trump who's really achieved that objective of being elected to 2 non-consecutive terms.
A little political history for you this morning. All right, we'll have more after the break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back, everyone. Here with Dr. Brian Shoop from Mississippi State University, discussing politics and where we are on this Inauguration Day. And One thing we were talking about off camera was the fact that, it seems like right now we have these movements in American politics where you have the extreme left, the extreme right, and a new independent voter, a different kind of independent voter.
Yeah.
That could make a big difference in upcoming elections too, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think it's very possible. Historically, people who study political behavior and the composition of our political parties always looked at independents with a little bit of skepticism. Because when we would interview people who were political independents in the 70s and in the 1980s, they tended to have a lot less knowledge about politics and the news. And I still think there are a lot of independents who are like that. But one of the things that's really happened over the course maybe of the past decade, and I think Donald Trump is one of the main reasons why, he really forced a major change in one of our two political parties. But what's happened is you've seen a lot of people leave the Democratic Party and leave the Republican Party. Now, they've been replaced to an extent with new kinds of voters, particularly on the Republican side. But you have a lot of independents who don't really feel comfortable with either political party. And that's going to be really interesting to see, because these are people who tend to consume the news, tend to have a pretty sophisticated knowledge about politics. It's going to be really fascinating to see how the two main political parties try to address and convince those people to vote for them.
And also, you brought up a point as we were talking about the voter today wants instant information.
Yeah.
They're looking for something that kind of fits their mold or their mindset of what they think a policy should be. But there is kind of this running narrative or theme where each decision, they don't want to accept there may be some negative consequences. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think there's actually a couple of different parts to what you're saying. The first deals with how we get our information. The media gets a bad rap. And I think part of the reason the media gets a bad rap is because there's no the media. There's hundreds of different media outlets. And what people tend to do is they will try to consume media that kind of confirms things that they already believe, or maybe things that they kind of in here need to be true for the world to make sense to them. And that's not unique to one party. I think that's something that we all have, right? But that makes it very different for us to share or have a shared set of facts that are probabilistically or empirically true. And that makes it really difficult to sort of convince people about the merits of political positions, whether it comes from a Republican or a Democrat or from an independent source. And that's kind of a challenge. But I think the other part that you got to, which I think is also very important, is we want all of the good things and none of the bad things. We want our public policies to produce outcomes that are positive, but we don't necessarily want the negative externalities that can come along with that. And that's just not really how the world always works.
That is very true. And I guess going ahead and looking at the next 4 years, do you think there is one consequential piece of policy or legislation that will be big and maybe transformative even, one way or the other?
Well, I think there are probably going to be a couple of things. I think one of the biggest things is probably going to be change in terms of our relationship with international trade. President Trump has been pretty forceful in his position that we're going to sort of readdress those terms of trade, either if it's with allies like Mexico or Canada, or with countries that we have kind of a rivalry with, like China. And so that's going to be a very big shift. I think even more so than in his first term.
There you go. All right. Thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Dr. Brian Shoup, Mississippi State University. We'll have more news after the break. Welcome back, and thanks for listening to my conversation with Dr. Shoup. On to some other news. The Vanderbilt Transplant Center officially sets a world record for the number of heart transplants performed in 2024. The team carrying out a total of 174 heart transplants, something surgeon Aaron Williams says is worth it every single time.
We are about to go inside this operating room at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, where a patient is currently getting a new heart. It's a heart transplant surgery. Of course, it's my first time, but for these surgeons, this is their bread and butter. I'm going to show you what's going on.
We are in operating room 11, which is a cardiac operating room, in the midst of a heart transplant.
Now rewarm.
Rewarm. This team is hours into surgery, and the time has finally come.
I get a 3-0 transplant.
One heart comes out, and a new one takes its place.
You don't want cardiac surgery to be exciting. You want it to be boring. That's our goal.
While it's just another day for the Vanderbilt heart transplant team, this past year has been anything but routine. Together, they set a world record, performing 174 heart transplants in 2024.
There's not a more cool thing to do than to take a bad old heart out and put a new one in, and it works, and it helps change someone's life for the better.
You know, we have to keep pinching each other. So, I love you.
Down the hall, Sarah Dillon is recovering from her own heart transplant surgery 11 days ago.
I feel like a miracle.
And I just started crying. I was just thanking God. I was like, we got the call, we got the call. Thank you, God. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Vanderbilt.
It's patients like Sarah that bring this team back to the OR every day. It's what drives them to stay ahead of the curve, like developing unique technologies and strategies to preserve the organs.
And those things, I think, have allowed us to, again, travel longer distances to recover hearts and consider hearts that might otherwise be discarded.
We've actually taken hearts from Alaska, Puerto Rico, Canada.
They all end up right in this room, where the whole team works to make history again.
The real driver for all this is innovation. How do we do it better? How do we solve the next set of problems that are associated with not just transplantation, but advanced cardiovascular disease?
Before former President Biden left, the White House's administration announced a costly GLP-1 drugs often used for weight loss are among the 15 medications listed in the next round of Medicare price negotiations. Just how much consumers will ultimately save on the blockbuster drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy depends on many factors, including the Trump administration's approach to the negotiation process and the type of Medicare drug coverage an enrollee has. Only people eligible for Medicare will benefit directly. The 15 drugs on the list were used by more than 5 million Medicare enrollees. The drugs treat a variety of diseases, including asthma, cancer, and diabetes. The negotiated prices would take effect in 2027. Pasadena Transit bus drivers are being held as heroes after rushing into the flames of the Eaton fire to help evacuate senior citizens. Jasmine Vale has a look at some cell phone video of what these drivers faced.
Right down Lake Avenue.
Yeah. Oh my God.
As flames closed in, a group of Pasadena bus drivers drove into the inferno last week.
Our eyes are red from all the ashes.
They were called to help rescue hundreds of people from senior living facilities across Altadena threatened by the Eaton fire.
Firefighters are helping, the nurses were helping. We're putting wheelchairs all the way down there, locking them in place.
35-year-old Erasmo Rodriguez, an operations manager with Pasadena Transit, was the first to jump into a bus that night and race to Washington and Altadena, where he saw this chaotic scene as facilities burned.
We're just boarding the buses, getting as many people as we could. It didn't matter where they sat, on the ground, anywhere. Leave your walker behind, leave your wheelchair behind, fit as many people as we can.
Pasadena Transit maintenance manager Adan Morera says he also saw the fire on the hills near his home and came back to work to help.
I told my GM how many buses we need out there to help them evacuate. We took 4 more buses. It was horrible. Going up there, just a lot of black smoke, fire embers hitting the bus, hitting us. There's a bush in front of 7-Eleven caught on fire right in front of our eyes.
He says he did his best to comfort those seniors who were confused and scared.
So right here, I had an elderly lady. She had her dog. She got out of the house so fast she forgot the leash.
Letty Ochoa, Pasadena Transit's general manager, says she staffed 11 buses, sending them out in a caravan through the smoke.
I said, you don't have to do this. And they're like, no, we want to do this. Let us do it. Like, we're on our way. So they didn't even think about it.
Risking their own lives for strangers and for those these bus drivers say they know well as regular passengers.
These guys are heroes, true heroes, because they're not trained for that. We're trained to move the city around, but not do this.
Rodriguez, though, refuses to be called that, saying he did what he had to do.
It needs to get done. Somebody needs to do it.
Welcome back, everybody. We got a look at what could be the future of in-store shopping. From an AI concierge to help you navigate the mall, that is, to new ways to speed up checkout. Jared Hill stopped by the National Retail Federation's annual show in New York and has a look at what could be coming to a store near you.
This year, artificial intelligence will be the key to shopping efficiency.
It's all about speed and convenience.
At the National Retail Federation's 2025 Expo, Toshiba showed off a new register it says can make self-checkout faster.
So basically it's calibrated by the weight.
The scanner, best for just a handful of items, uses cameras and a scale to check everything at once. No barcodes needed.
What happens though if, let's say, I kind of just plop stuff down?
That's a great question. Okay, let's see what happens. So it's prompting you to rearrange your items, right?
We want to make sure that capability is in there too, so that nobody can hide items, even if it's a mistake.
Then some peppermint, two peppermint.
Rather have someone else do the shopping? ProGlove is rolling out a new set of lightweight scanner gloves, helping in-store pickers work faster and safer.
Those pickers need tools to streamline that flow, help them in the decisions, help them move in that world without disrupting the shopper.
The gloves, in use in grocery stores across the United Kingdom, are now coming to Texas-based chain H-E-B, also from across the pond.
I'm Kai, a friendly AI assistant.
French company Levitra is hoping their virtual concierge will soon help guide Americans through stores, malls, even the airport.
What questions can I ask you?
You can ask me about exhibit information, specific store or booth locations.
Being able to talk with someone, even if it's an avatar, it's really helpful.
Improving the retail experience.
Where can I get something to eat?
One interaction at a time.
It's located at the back of the River Pavilion.
Jared Hill.
They have a variety of options available for purchase.
CBS News, New York.
From high-tech to a decidedly low-tech solution for airport security, the Agriculture Department uses dogs to sniff out illegal foods from abroad that could spread disease and harm in agriculture in the U.S. Natalie Brand tags along with the Beagle Brigade to show us the important work these pups do.
Standing guard at international arrivals.
No? Okay.
The Beagle Brigade is on patrol, powered by their keen sense of smell.
Oh, we got pork floss.
There we go. That's a good boy.
The hounds are on the hunt for fresh produce and protein from abroad.
Meat is not allowed to come into the United States. So the pork that's on the rice, that's not allowed.
Not allowed because it could carry foreign disease or pests that pose a threat to U.S. agriculture and the environment.
Yeah, you're doing a good job.
This passenger was sent for extra screening, where additional prohibited items were detected.
We're looking at fresh fruits, vegetables, anything you might be able to plant in the ground that might do harm to the U.S. agriculture industry.
Christopher Brewer, the Customs and Border Protection Agriculture Branch Chief at Washington Dulles International Airport, showed us some items confiscated over the years, from decorative eggs
due to things like bird flu, prohibited,
to herbs, plants, and souvenirs like this woven hat.
These are made out of reeds, dried reed. We're concerned about a little tiny mite, red palm mite.
Brewer calls his team the last line of defense, protecting a multi-billion-dollar industry that feeds the nation.
It may seem like a little thing, oh, I just brought my sausage in, but it can turn into a big thing because most of the diseases involved are highly contagious and easily spread.
It's the job of these highly trained beagles, including Philip, to stop that from happening.
The thing that surprises me the most about the ability of these dogs is just how sensitive their noses are.
CBP Agriculture Specialist Valerie Wu is Philip's handler.
Philip has found a single grape in the bottom of somebody's purse. Or, one time he found a handful of blueberries. Things that don't give off a whole ton of odor, and he can still find it.
A bust that may seem benign, but could harbor a potential threat thwarted by this little guy's nose.
Thank you. No problem. Good job, Phil. Let's go.
Natalie Brandt, CBS News, Virginia.
Most of the Beagle Brigade dogs are rescue dogs. Customs and Border Protection have around 160 agriculture dog teams nationwide. CBP also urges passengers to always declare any food or goods they have brought back from their travels. Well, speaking of airports, Spirit Airlines says it will cut 200 non-union jobs in an attempt to cut costs. This comes after the carrier filed for bankruptcy in November. Spirit has struggled with debt, competition from other low-cost carriers, and failed attempts to merge with other airlines. A spokesperson said the job cuts are separate from the bankruptcy filing. The carrier expects to emerge from bankruptcy in the first quarter of this year. According to the court filing, Spirit Airlines has nearly 13,000 employees and 8,000 independent contractors. A new report says insurance costs are rising rapidly for many homeowners. Data released by the Treasury Department Thursday shows homeowners' insurance costs increased 9% faster than overall inflation from 2018 to 2022. The spike has been attributed to extreme weather events like hurricanes and fires. According to the report, the 20% of homes in zip codes judged to be at greatest risk for extreme weather paid an average of more than $2,300 a year in premiums. That's 82% higher than the rates paid by homeowners living in areas with the lowest climate risk. The report also finding homeowners living in high-risk areas are 80% more likely to have their policies canceled by insurance companies. I know my homeowner's insurance went up. All right, we'll be right back with more after the break. All right, thanks so much for joining us this morning on Mid Morning. We hope you have a great day. We'll see you back here tomorrow.